Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, a big thank you to Kingers for the virtual gift voucher. Huge thank you my friend for the support, it is truly appreciated, thank you. But on to today. Today we are talking the announcement of the next Dawn of Fire novel, The Wolftime. And with that in mind, the Space Wolves' relationship with Guilliman. Now last week my Instagram blew up with DMs, asking if I'd seen the announcement of the latest Dawn of Fire novel, oh so teasingly named The Wolftime. And boy, I cannot wait. However, before we get into that discussion, let's read the synopsis given to us on the Warhammer community website. The Indomitus Crusade has brought the Emperor's vengeance to thousands of star systems. The fleets and armies under the leadership of Rabute Guilliman fight for the survival of humanity against the forces of the Chaos Gods. But the traitors and heretics are not the only foe looking to destroy the rule of terror. Xenos prey on human worlds in numbers not seen for millennia. Worst amongst them are the rampaging orcs, whose migration conquests threaten to reverse the many gains of Fleet Primus, and their throaty bellows carry a name not heard in years, of destruction made flesh, a bestial warlord without peer, Gazkul Mag Uruk Fraka. In the midst of this brutal tide is Fenris, world of the Space Wolves, under Logan Grimnar, depleted by ever greater demands on their warriors, called upon by the Legion Breaker Guilliman. The Wolves of Fenris face a momentous decision. Grimnar and his councillors must choose whether their fate is to ally themselves with an ancient rival and risk all that makes them the Vilka Fenrika, or to accept their demise and wait for the return of their own Primarch, and the coming of the Wolftime. Okay, so let's get the big question out of the way first. Is this the return of Rhys? He was prophesied to return in the Wolftime after all, and here we have a novel with that very name. In short, no. No, this is not the return of Leman Russ. Well, of course, look, we do always have to say never. But in my opinion at least, I'm 99% certain it's just not happening here. And the main reason I have for this is the Dawn of Fire series is set at the launch of the Indomitus Crusade, as Guilliman and his fleets are purging out from Terra. Unless there's a major change, this is set long before the events we've just seen in Godblight, where Guilliman has already reached Ultramar. And as we know, Rhys had not returned within those pages. However, on a side note, we did get a nice little line from Guilliman about his brother contained therein. When talking to one of his many Custodes bodyguards about going into battle himself, Guilliman remarked, "If you are annoyed by this, then be glad my brother Rhys did not return in my stead. For humour's sake he would punch you to the ground and then scold you for not laughing with him. He did it to me once. I shall tell you the tale sometime." Now yes, Rhys is prophesied to return in the Wolftime, and the book title does fill you with that hope. However, it appears to me that this novel will be a precursor of sorts to the Space Marine conquest novel Ashes of Prospero, which coincidentally was also written by Gav Thorpe, who has taken the reins for this novel. Now, Ashes of Prospero was the first we had seen of the Wolves since the introduction of the Primaris and the return of Guilliman himself. But rather than seeing them being introduced to all this news, As was the way with the timeline back then, being set at the end of the Indomitus Crusade rather than within it, the Space Wolves had already received and incorporated the Primaris into their ranks, though there did remain a little doubt as to how the Curse of the Wolfen would eventually play out. As we can see from this conversation between the Stormcaller and Grimnar himself. Dozens of tribes were lost to Magnus's spite, and Grandmaster Oricon's purging curtailed their numbers further. It is of no benefit to take those that will not pass the tests, nor to lower our standards. We are recovering, but it is a slow process. What of the newcomers, the Primaris Marines? Logan pursed his lips, giving genuine consideration to the question. Exemplary. They fight as you might think they would. We have campaigns that would have ended poorly but for their presence. But who can say what cause tampering with the gene seed has done to the Canis helix? Grimnar dropped his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. The Wolfen curse is still there. But are the Primaris Marines stronger against it, or weaker? Now, I must admit it was a little disappointing not seeing the Wolves' reaction to these new creations, to word itself of Guilliman returning. I don't know if we'll get to see those exact topics within the pages of the Wolftime, but I really hope we do. I also hope, as much as I hate them, we get to see a minor retcon. I know, but hear me out here. In Ashes of Prospero, Guilliman himself never travelled to Fenris, and I know he can't travel to every chapter himself. But man, come on. We need to see Guilliman interacting with at least all the first founding chapter masters, seeing their reactions to the returned Primarch, and hearing Guilliman speak to them of that particular brother. To Tushan about Vulcan, to Azrael about the Lion. They would be such great little moments. And that of course goes double for Grimnar and the Space Wolves. Especially when it does feel that the synopsis is trying to up the ante on the Wolves' opinion of Guilliman, the Legion Breaker. If that's the tension they want to use, then having Guilliman himself go to Fenris makes more sense to me. Man, what a conversation that would be. Hearing Guilliman speak of the tension between him and Rhys in regard to his implementation of the Codex Astartes, but also the loyalty, how they both stayed true during the heresy, and how perhaps while they were never close, the bond of brotherhood between the Primarchs. How different things would be now if he had Rhys to stand by his side. Man, I hope we get to see something like this. You could just have it done through communication instead, or a message recorded by Guilliman himself. But regardless, my excitement for seeing Grimnar within this moment is extremely high. As for Rhys himself, while perhaps we know he hasn't returned, we do know the Wolves are looking for him, feeling that given the state of the galaxy at large, that this must surely be the Wolftime. No sign? None, my lord. There are stirrings, tempests through which even I cannot gaze. Even so, I saw a sleeper entombed in rock, and a white storm that rode upon a chariot of lightning. Now, we'll talk about if those two teases are still the most likely later in the week, but it did show us that, as of Ashes of Prospero, there was no sign or even tease of Rhys. If indeed Wolftime will be a precursor to Ashes of Prospero, Perhaps we'll see the wolves dispatching those searches. See their storm priests begin the search into the Immaterium. Maybe even be given a tease as to why Grimnar is so hopeful. Something other than maybe just Guilliman himself returning. Maybe, just maybe, a wolf howl echoing out across the warp. And if that happens, oh man, I think you guys will hear my reaction without me even having to upload it. Now it does have to be said, with the return of Ghazghkull, this also ties into when we saw him last as well, with him taking on, of course, Ragnar Blackmane of the Space Wolves. So again, I'm expecting this novel to really tie up all the events of the wolves we have seen so far during the Indomitus era. Of course, this is just my opinion and thoughts. What seems most likely to me given the lore that we have. There could be a big retcon and Ashes of Prospero becomes irrelevant. It's unlikely to me, but you can't rule it out and never say never. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. However, again, with the Dawn of Fire, the Wolftime, I am not expecting the return of Leman Russ. More so an epic retelling of the Space Wolves going up against Ghazghkull Thraka, and hopefully seeing them receive news of the Primaris for the first time. Fingers crossed by Guilliman himself. However it plays out though, one thing is for sure, I'll be diving into the novel as soon as I can. Gav did a great job with the Ashes of Prospero, so I have really high hopes for this one too. But as always guys, what do you think? What are you expecting to see in the Wolftime? Do you still have high hopes for the return of Russ? Or are your feet a little bit more grounded, and you're expecting to see the events of the near past like me? Tying together all the separate scenes we have seen of the wolves and leading us into the Ashes of Prospero. As always guys, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off. And I'll see you all again real soon.